So are Newcastle United due a huge win here against Liverpool tonight? Not just in the Premier League, where Newcastle have struggled in the last couple of games, but against Liverpool, where Newcastle haven't won against Liverpool since 2015. It's been a long time. There's been some tough defeats, definitely under Eddie Howe as well. I'm sure that today is an opportunity to hopefully finally put that right. Newcastle really do need it as well. I put it to Eddie Howe before the game whether he would almost accept a point and a defensive performance. He wasn't having any of it. He said he wanted to continue to provide the brand of football which, you know, he's pledged to the supporters before, and he's not going to change tack. So it's going to be interesting to see how Newcastle approach this one. It's going to be interesting to see how Liverpool cope. And honest lot, Liverpool have just looked untouchable. They're almost a runaway train at the top of the Premier League. Only Nottingham Forest have beaten them. They've beaten Bayer Leverkusen, they've beaten Real Madrid, they've beaten Manchester City. They'll be keen to continue their outstanding form here against Newcastle tonight. But it's a real opportunity for Newcastle. Under the lights, crowd behind them. It's about time Newcastle United got that big win against Liverpool. Well, it wasn't the victory that Newcastle United were looking for, but tell you what, that was much better. Everywhere you look at that game, the way Newcastle started it, the way they competed, the star players all turned up tonight, and it was a far cry from that pretty horrible 1-1 draw at Crystal Palace just a few days ago. And I think Eddie Howe looked like a man who was much more satisfied. He did say in his press conference that, you know, it wasn't as bad as people had made out against Crystal Palace the other day. Ultimately now we'll look back on this game probably with a bit of pleasure, really, because it was just a fantastic game to witness, as topsy-turvy as it was. But I think really Newcastle United, they started the game with much more intent. I mean, let's try and reflect back on it. I mean, Alexander Isak's wonderful 70-mile-per-hour strike first and foremost. And then the second half was probably much more like the Liverpool team we've witnessed, getting back into it at 1-1 through Curtis Jones. But Newcastle again rolling their sleeves up, pushing on. Anthony Gordon putting them 2-1 up. And you just wondered, you know, could Newcastle dig out that big result? But I think fantastic spirit shown from Liverpool, really, because at the end of the day, they managed to go 3-2 up through two moments of incredible genius from Mo Salah. Another shot slamming off the woodwork. But really, at that point, I think Newcastle would have had a lot of questions put their way, game management, defensive woes. But thankfully, you know, this game had another twist, and Bruno's free kick whipped in for Fabian Schär to sort of an outstretched boot that somehow got across the line. It was just that type of night, wasn't it? And it probably had we had another 10 minutes, I think we'd have seen a winner in this game, and we probably would have seen a 4-3. So a crazy night all round. Eddie Howe will be much happier, as I say, but I think ultimately the big question now for Newcastle is, can they do it against a team outside the top six? We've seen it against Arsenal, we've seen it against Man City, we've now seen it against Liverpool. We've seen Newcastle on as bad a team as, you know, has been suggested in some games. We now need them to do this more consistently. They've got to go to Brentford and they've got to put on a performance and give the fans, the travelling fans, something to shout about. The fans were fantastic at Selhurst Park the other day, but the result was just a poor one from Newcastle's point of view. They couldn't hold the game out, and tonight at least we saw some spirit, and hoping that Newcastle are back now and this game can reignite the season a little bit. Well, a couple of closing thoughts on tonight. Hopefully you can hear me a bit clearer. The wind was a bit crazy after the game, almost as crazy as the game itself, to be totally honest, because that one was an absolute barnstormer of a game. And I think really now Newcastle fans will be just delighted to see some positive signs from the team. Not only the 3 goals, the way the Newcastle battled back, the big that earlier turned up, and I think realistically Eddie Howe will be happy now. He'll be much happier with that, because the Palace draw, you know, it's exactly the same result. It's a score draw, it's a point, but that there was so many worrying aspects of that Palace draw. Doesn't mean that Newcastle are suddenly going to storm to glory in the next few games, but I just think there was building blocks to be used there tonight, and I think realistically Eddie Howe, it just seemed almost relieved in some ways, just because his team have shown him some fight. You know, they've shown him that they're up for it, especially the way they came back to get the equaliser at 3-3. Had Newcastle, if you think of what could have happened in this game, the way Liverpool have been playing, but first half was all Newcastle. Second half we did see the Liverpool that, you know, we've watched all season, storm to the top of the league, storm to the top of the Champions League. They showed their quality in the second half, but Newcastle, you know, they had answers, and, you know, went ahead again. And at 2-1 you thought this could be a huge result for Newcastle. Almost Alexander Isak making it 3-1. The flag going up. There's just so many incidents in that game. It's untrue. But look, 3-3, you would have taken that before the game. I would imagine most Newcastle fans would have taken a point before the game. And you move on to Brentford now and hope that Newcastle can pick something big up down there. This is the test now. It's, can they do it against a Brentford away from home Saturday, 3 o'clock kickoff? You know, away from St James's Park, away from the TV cameras. Can they go and do it at a so-called lesser team than Liverpool? Won't be easy down there, don't get me wrong, but I just think this is the test now for Newcastle. They've got to go and show the positive aspects they showed tonight in that big game at the GTEC Stadium in London. So big game coming up. Anyhow, much happier. I think the players now have got something, some momentum, attacking momentum, positivity to take forward into Saturday's game now. I think we'll all go away now and reflect and dust down on, you know, what has been probably the most entertaining game of the season at St James's Park, but it's just 1 point.